Well, I've decided to dedicate a whole video to 2 Timothy 3:16, even though I've already talked about it. People quote this verse constantly. All scripture is God-breathed. But almost no one asks the simple question, what scriptures is he referring to there? Because it almost just can't be the New Testament, right? And the reason why goes deeper than just the dates. If Paul wrote this letter, which is debated, but let's say he did, the only scriptures that would have existed then would be the Hebrew Bible, the law, the prophets, the writings. That is what every Jewish believer meant in that time when they said the word scripture. Paul didn't have a bound collection of Christian books. That category did not exist yet. Point number 2, Timothy grew up Jewish. Paul said Timothy learned these scriptures from his childhood. That alone proves that Paul is not talking about the New Testament. Paul is pointing backward to the Hebrew scriptures that Timothy would have known. Point 3, here's another part that a lot of people don't think about. Paul probably wouldn't have been thinking that he was writing scripture as he was writing this letter. They wrote letters, they wrote stories, they wrote testimonies to these communities. But I don't see any evidence that proves that they thought that they were writing some future sacred book. No one in the first century saw their words the same way that modern Christians do now. The very first time a Christian calls a gospel scripture is around 100 years after Paul wrote 2 Timothy. It took more than 3 centuries before anything close comes to what we have and now consider the New Testament. So when someone uses 2 Timothy 3:16 to prove that all the books in the New Testament are perfect, they're reading something into the text that Paul never meant. He was talking about the scriptures he grew up with. He was talking about the scriptures Timothy grew up with. He was talking about the Jewish Bible, the Hebrew Bible, not a collection of Christian books that did not get finished until after he died. And this is my core point. Understanding the history doesn't necessarily attack the Bible. It simply lets us read the Bible the way that the original authors intended. If we want to have honest conversations, we have to start with what they meant, not what we assume. As always, drop down the comments. Tell me what you think. Get back with me.